Hello guys, good morning everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. If I am audible, just let me know. Hanji guys, good morning everybody. If I am audible, let me know. Audible. Okay. So we're going to start the analysis for today, right? So again, what we have seen, the situation in Tamil Nadu, it is not getting very well. As you can see, so there was overnight rainfall. As a result, it has heavily inundated the land areas. As a result, it has led to the choking of the roads and it has resulted in floods. So you can see floods paralyzed life in southern Tamil Nadu. Rescue and relief operations are on. Now we are seeing what are the impacts that is being caused in the state of Tamil Nadu. Its infrastructure is not suitable and adapted to the impacts or the anticipated impacts of climate change. This is what we call as adaptation measures, right? Cities का role बहुत important है. Cities needs to have a smart approach and have to have a latest kind of infrastructure that is in line with the changes that we are witnessing due to climate change, right? So in this context, I would like to tell you one thing, that on today at 11 a.m. we would be having a elaborate discussion on COP28. So if you want to have a elaborate discussion on COP28, because it is very important from our prelims examination point of view, so please join in at 11 a.m. right? And this channel we would be discussing COP28, right? And you will get a PDF for that as well, in which I have made sure that I have included all the points that were discussed at COP28. Okay. So this is the point that we have to understand, that floods has paralyzed the life in Tamil Nadu and in the southern Tamil Nadu, and rescue and relief operations are on. Okay. Now moving to the next part, I'm going to directly go to the editorial. Now this editorial we have already discussed in a certain context, and now I will like to discuss this editorial in detail, that is related to a blow for the rights of the legislature in the lawmaking. Now here the issue is being related to the office of governor and the state governments, and what we have seen is this issue has been more popular in the state of Punjab, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, and as well as in Karnataka. Now let's try to understand what is this whole issue and what are the changes that have been brought in the November 10 ruling in the state of Punjab versus principal secretary to the governor of Punjab and another, right? So let's try to understand this whole situation so that we guys have a better idea and understanding related to this. Now first of all, when we talk about the problem with that has been highlighted in the recent context with the position of governor and office of governor using his discretionary powers, withholding assent on the bill, right? So there have been cases where the governor of Kerala has been sitting on the bills for 2 to 3 years, right? There have been around 8 to 11 bills where the Kerala governor has been sitting on them. So the issue is related to withholding the assent to the bills, right? So this is the issue that has been primarily, we can say कि बहुत ज़्यादा ये अभी न्यूज़ में रहा है. So as a result, under this veto power that we understood from this perspective, now let's try to discuss what are the powers that have been given to the governor under the constitution. Now under article 200, there are 4 options that are there for the governor if a bill is presented to the governor. Let's try to understand. Now first option is कि यार वो बिल को assent पास कर देंगे. दूसरा क्या है, वो withhold कर सकते हैं. तीसरा क्या है कि अगर वो चाहे तो reconsideration के लिए भेज सकते हैं. They can send it for reconsideration as well. Fourth thing is the most important thing, that they can reserve the bill for the president. Reserve the bill for the president. So these are the 4 options that the governor has in context of a bill that has been passed by the state legislature. If they pass the assent, then it will become an act. Second is the problem where it has been highlighted in most of the cases in governors versus the issues that have erupted in various state government, that governor has been sitting on withholding the bills, right? So as a result, it becomes a dead we can say bill, right? उसके ऊपर कोई एक्शन ही नहीं हो पाता है, तो जिसकी वजह से बहुत ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट हो रही थी. Third thing is that they can send it for reconsideration, and after reconsideration, if the bill is passed, then the governor has to pass the bill. And the fourth case is that is reserving the bill for the president. Now we will try to discuss the 2 major points, that is the option number 2 and option number 4. Now let's try to look at the option number 2 that has been made a certain changes. Now what are the changes that have been made inside this? Let's try to understand. If a governor withhold assent to the bill according to the new ruling, that means that bill has to be again sent for reconsideration. This is the important point that has happened in context of the new ruling that has been brought by the Chief Justice of India, which is if a governor is withholding his assent, then that means it shall be sent for reconsideration. And if the assembly passes the bill after the reconsideration, then the governor has to give assent to the bill. Then he has no other option, but he has to give the assent to the bill. So what they are trying to do over here is the issues that were highlighted in the various states was related to the provision in the option 2 that was related to withholding the bill. So there were certain cases where a lot of bills had been withheld by the governor. Now this provision is getting changed, as according to the new ruling, they cannot withhold the bill for indefinite period of time. They can say we have withhold the assent, but that will automatically suggest that the bill has to be reconsidered for the state assembly and resent to the state assembly. After the assembly passes it, then the governor has to give the assent. But the problem still lies in this process, which has been challenged by the governments of Telangana and Tamil Nadu as well, that what is the time limit over here, right? So this is the main problem. That is the thing which has not been addressed by the ruling of the Chief Justice of India. Yes, they have said as soon as possible, but that doesn't prescribe a particular time limit if I talk about this particular situation. So this is the scenario that where we have to understand that this is a problematic area still, because here time limit has not been defined. Second thing we have to understand in this context is when they say reserve the bill for the president. Yes, governor has the power, if he feels that certain provisions of High Court are getting endangered, then he can send the bill, or for let's say reserve the bill for the consideration of the president. Now here is another major choke point that is there, because we have seen that there are a lot of other cases as well where governor tries to reserve the bill for the president apart from those mentioned in the constitution as well. As a result, if a governor reserves the bill, again over here there is no prescription for time limit. There is no prescription for time limit. As a result, what we are trying to say over here in this context is that whether a bill is constitutionally legal or not, right? Whatever the thing that is being reserved for the president is basically related to certain provisions of the constitution. So as a result, that is being challenged. So as a result, governor feels यार ये जो bill है ना, इसमें कुछ constitution के related ना powers को कम किया जा रहा है कोर्ट की. तो एक काम करो, what we can do, we can reserve the bill for the president. Now tell me one thing, does the governor or the president have the power for this particular aspect to check the constitutional validity? No. The constitutional validity, if ever has to be checked, it has to be checked by the judiciary. So how can they be vested with these powers, that is the president and the governor? So as a result, what we are witnessing over here is that there are certain loopholes in this part 4 as well that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible, because one thing we have to understand, that governor main role is to just facilitate the whole process, right? It's a nominal executive position and the real power lies with the assembly who has been elected by the people. So this is the point. If it is understood and if it is implemented as well, then we will not be seeing the cases that we are right now witnessing and will not be seeing the conflicts that we are witnessing. And I'm telling you guys, this whole topic of governor is very important from an examination point of view, because it has been in detailed news over the past 9 to 10 months. So you can expect a question in prelims 2024 related to the topic of governor. I hope you have able to understand this article. Right guys? Chali. Now, second article that I want to discuss is related to grassroot democracy as a bulwark against the Maoists. Now, one thing we have to understand is when we talk about the election that happened in Chhattisgarh. Now, one of the things you have to need to understand is Chhattisgarh mostly comprises, if I am not wrong, 34% of it is the tribal vote. But if I talk about the voter turnaround in certain areas which are very much heavily affected by the Naxalite or Maoist, right, I will tell you the voter turnout in the areas that was heavily affected by the Maoism or Maoist was just meager 3 to 4%, right? So this particularly brings the plight of the situation that is there in these tribal areas, particularly affected by Naxalite movement. Now, one of the main thing that is being advocated by the Maoist or the Naxalite movement is that they want to have a separate government, or we can call it the government of the people, which they call it as the Janta government. और जनता सरकार. Now, in order to basically address this situation, there is a schedule that has been there in our constitution, which is the 5th schedule, right? Now, under this, a PESA Act was also formed in the year 1996, that is Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas. But the problem is such that we have not been able to give the powers in these scheduled areas that come under the 5th schedule, and those are the areas where we need to give them the powers as well. Then only we would be able to integrate them in the decision making process, and the movements that have been carrying on by the Maoism or the Maoist, that is related to this purpose only कि यार हमारी खुद की सरकार होनी चाहिए. पर जब हम ऐसे एरियाज के अंदर वी आर नॉट गिविंग देम द बेनिफिट्स इवन दो वी हैव enacted the acts and we are not passing on the benefits, then it creates a lot of problem, and the problem that we have right now witnessed in the case where the voter turnout was just 3 to 4%. So if we have to defeat Maoism, because main purpose of Maoism is that we shall have a government which is run by the people, and one of the thing we can do in these areas is that we need to decentralize the democracy, we need to decentralize the power, we need to give power to the people, so that we are able to better work and bring a barrier against the Maoist movement that has been spreading throughout the country, right? Mainly in the region, if we talk about in the Bastar area, जब हम छत्तीसगढ़ की बात करते हैं, यहाँ पे सिर्फ वोटर टर्नआउट कितना रहा, 3 to 4%. So what we can do is we could have grassroots democracy as the bulwark against the Maoist, right? So this is the main context and the essence of this article that we have to understand. I hope you are aware of all the techniques, all the policies that have been run by the government of India as well, in order to understand one thing, that if we want these let's say tribal people and the tribal Maoist leaders and the Maoist leadership to be integrated into the whole process, we need to understand that we need to involve them in the decision making process. That is the approach that has been witnessed and used lately by the government as well. That is the approach of integration and assimilation, right? That is most important thing that we have to understand. Yes, according with that, we have to make sure that there are not enough let's say there are not any casualties that are happening to the Maoist attacks as well, right? So as a result, there is a policy as well called Samadhan movement as well. Okay guys, now the hollowing out of anti-defection law. Now whole article today is mainly focused on polity, right? So let's try to discuss this as well, that is the anti-defection law. Now one of the thing we have to understand is, when I talk about anti-defection law, it was introduced by 52nd Amendment Act 1985, right? And it was given a place in the 10th schedule. Now one thing we need to understand is that there were a lot of incidents where there were people were let's say regularly changing their loyalties from one party to another party, thus defeating the whole purpose of elections, where a particular voter vote for a particular party, right? And that is how a candidate is being elected. But the problem that we have witnessed in that scenario was highlighted by certain cases as well, like Ayaram and Gayaram. So as a result, in 52nd Amendment 1985, we brought in an anti-defection law. So as a result, now what are the cases under which there would be let's say, if any, we can say that what is this anti-defection law? Let's try to understand. There are certain things that has been mentioned under the 52nd Amendment Act 1985. अगर वो चीजें फॉलो होती हैं तो डिफेक्शन नहीं होगी, अगर वो फॉलो नहीं होती है then that will amount to defection. Now let's try to understand the cases that will amount to defection, right? First try to understand the cases that will amount to defection. If a person has joined, or let's say has been elected from any political party, and he resigns from that political party, then that will amount to defection. If an independent candidate let's say fight an election, and after winning an election joins any political party, independent candidate, I can write as well, joins any political party, then that will also amount to defection. Third thing is, if a nominated member after 6 months join a political party, then it will also amount to defection. So these are the cases that we have to understand. Then when it amounts to defection, that automatically gives the way for the disqualification of a sitting member of a parliament or a legislature. Now question is, there is also one another provision, but that doesn't amount to defection. That is when, if 2/3 members of a political party move out from that political party, पहली बात, move out from a political party, and merges with another political party. Now this word merger is very important that we have to understand. It has been mentioned in the anti-defection law कि if particular persons feel that they do not want to be in this political party and they want to join another political party, that will only happen if that defection, or let's say people कितने होने चाहिए total, there shall be 2/3 of the majority of the political party. But now the problem that we are witnessing is in the various cases that we have seen, in the case of Shiv Sena as well, that there had been a certain faction that moved out, 2/3 faction, but they didn't merge with any political party. So the word that has been missing is merger. Now this is what we are calling in the editorial as hollowing out of anti-defection law, and these are the things that has to be understood, because 2/3 people have moved away and they have not merged with any political party. In the landmark ruling given by the Supreme Court as well, where they said in this scenario in context of Delhi government as well, यहाँ पे इन्होंने बोला था कि ये स्पीकर को डिसाइड करना है कि डिफेक्शन है या नहीं है, बट स्पीकर हैज बीन silent on this matter and he has been given a time as well. Let's see whether what he decides related to whether this particular thing that has happened in the case of Maharashtra amounts to defection or not, when they have, let's say, defected from a political party but they haven't merged with any political party and they have remained as an independent faction. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Okay. Now what does COP28 mean for cities? Now this is very very important. I think COP28 आज हम क्लास में भी डिस्कस करेंगे 11 o'clock वाली क्लास में, right? Now before I give away what we gonna discuss in class, वो तो 11 बजे डिस्कस करेंगे. Now one of the thing that I want to tell you is, जब 1995 में first COP हुई थी, that happened in 1995, right? Now in that time the urban population all across the world was 44%. What was the population? 44%. Now from 44% it has gone to 55%. It has gone to 55%. Now if we talk about urban world today, it consumes 75% of the energy and is responsible for 70% of carbon dioxide emissions. Very important context that we need to understand is that there is a very important role that cities have to play if we have to fight climate change. This is the aspect that has been looking for, that we have been looking for, that now the role of cities in adapting to and in mitigating of climate change has become very very important as well. At this year COP, there was a special ministerial meeting that was dedicated on urbanization and climate change. The meeting convened ministers of housing, urban development, environment, finance and other portfolios and other stakeholders. The cities of global south, that are the grouping of developing countries and the least developed countries, are more vulnerable than their western counterparts. The city leaders are hardly empowered. The major employment is in the informal sector and adaptation is the key to most cities are vulnerable to climate induced disasters. Now one of the thing we have to understand in this context is कि cities आज के time पे बड़ी important है, urbanization हो रही है, but they are also responsible for climate change. But the problem is that the cities that are of global south, that is of the developing countries, they are also more vulnerable as compared to their western counterparts, because they do not have the leadership, they do not have the mitigation plans, they do not have the adaptation plans. As a result, they are at more risk and they are more vulnerable as well. In context of that, thus first thing that we have to understand is cities have to play a very major role if we are looking forward in order to address the problems that have been witnessing by the various countries in the context of climate change. I hope this point is clear to everybody. ठीक है, यहाँ पे कुछ important नहीं है. Now we gonna directly go to the next page, right? Okay. So you must have heard about that there had been 80 MPs that have been suspended over the furore that has been caused in the parliament, right? So they are calling it as a murder of democracy, right? Okay. Nothing अच्छा ये important है, ये बड़ा important है और interesting point है, इसको note कर लेना. ये prelims का direct है. India's first winter Arctic expedition begins. Raman Research Institute team to hold study, right? इसको एक बार फटाफट देख लेना, ये बहुत ज़्यादा important है, इसको भूल मत जाना. Okay. Direct taxes will exceed 70% of the budget estimate. I think everybody knows what are direct taxes, right? Direct taxes are those taxes in which when a person on whom they are levied, that is the same person that has to pay the taxes, right? Can anyone give me an example of direct tax? Like I can give you certain examples like wealth tax, income tax, corporate tax, right? These are all the examples if I talk about are of the direct taxes, the taxes जहां पे जिसने ज्यादा जिसके ऊपर लिवाई किया जा रहा है उसी को पे करना पड़ता है, एंड दिस इज द टाइप ऑफ प्रोपोर्शनल टैक्सेशन और प्रोग्रेसिव टैक्सेशन, नॉट प्रोपोर्शनल but this is an example of progressive taxation. Very important point that we need to understand, that this is an example of progressive taxation. As the income level rises, the level of tax also goes up, right? So this is the point that we have to understand जब हम बात करते हैं direct taxes को लेके. And also one important economics concept that we need to understand and remember as well, that is related to Laffer curve, right? I am telling you because examination pass में है ताकि आपका रिवाइज हो जाएगा. Laffer curve is related to tax rate एंड टैक्स रेवेन्यू, सॉरी ऊपर टैक्स रेवेन्यू है नीचे टैक्स रेट है. सो दिस इज समथिंग लाइक दिस, ऐसे कुछ जाता है अगर हम बात करते हैं, ठीक है. एक टाइम पे जब टैक्स रेट बिल्कुल नॉमिनल होगा तो टैक्स रेवेन्यू वुड बी ऑप्टिमम, बट एट अ पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट व्हेन टैक्स रेट विल बी moved beyond a certain point, then the revenue would fall down, right? Because the people, they would think that everything they are earning, it is going for the government. So as a result, they will not be motivated enough to work, and as a such result it could happen that they will be not willing to pay the taxes as well and not willing to work. As a result, tax revenue can come down. So as a result, whenever we talk about a sound taxation system, it needs to always have a optimal tax rate. What it needs to have? It needs to have an optimal tax rate. Okay, moving to the next part. ठीक है, अभी और यहाँ पे कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. एक वर्ड है, आप इसको यूज कर सकते हो कि ये आप अपने एग्जांपल्स में यूज कर सकते हो एआई को लेके. इफ यू हैव टू टेल द बेनिफिट्स दैट जनरेटिव एआई कैन ऐड अप टू 1.2 to 1.5 trillion dollar to GDP by financial year 2030, right? So this is the point you have to understand. If you are telling about the advantages of AI, even though there are a lot of ethical problems in AI, if we talk about advantages, you can mention these points, that they can have an overall impact on the country's GDP, that they can help add 1.2 to 1.5 trillion dollar by 2030, right? And another thing you can understand is AI can create more jobs than it potentially eliminates, right? So this is a point that you can also make sure you can understand as well, because one of the aspect that we keep on highlighting is that if AI will come, it will make a lot of automation will come and it will lead to reduction of jobs, but somehow we have to understand that it will create more jobs as well than it will potentially eliminate. So these are the points that you can use it in your answers. Okay, and now the last news that we have to understand is, ठीक है, अब ये एक इंटरेस्टिंग है. Afghanistan left out of COP24, it hopes for inclusion in COP29. Now, one of the things you need to understand is, since the Taliban overtook Afghanistan, there has not been inclusion of Afghanistan into this overall framework of talks under climate change, that is under the Conference of Parties. As a result, they were excluded last year as well, and they have been excluded this year as well out of COP28. And as a result, the promises that were made to them that they would be receiving certain funding, because they are one of the countries that are more vulnerable to climate change. As a result, they require a lot of funding as well, and they were assured certain funding before 2021, before Taliban takeover, that they would be given $18 million under Green Climate Fund, but that has not happened, and as a result, they are under the radar, and there is a lot of pressure that they need to address the few problems that have been there in their country. Then only they would be eligible for the participation in COP, because no official government of entire United Nations has even declared or officially recognized Taliban government in Afghanistan. So this is the point that we have to understand, right guys? So I think this is it for today. You have any doubt, you can ask me and we will then conclude our session. हाँ जी, कोई डाउट है तो पूछ सकते हैं. यस, डिविडेंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन टैक्स सारे इसी में ही आएंगे, ठीक है. हाँ जी, और कोई डाउट किसी का? चलिए, ठीक है गाइज. सो सी यू ऑन 11 o'clock आज ही. एंड इफ यू हैव वांट टू हैव अ गुड एनालिसिस ऑन COP28, वी गोना हैव अ गुड एनालिसिस so that you guys are given a lot of information on COP28. Already we have created a link as well. So 11 a.m. do join us, and then we would be meeting again, right? Thank you so much. Take care and bye bye. What about mini series? Fakiresh, which mini series are you talking about? मिनी सीरीज, ये साइंस में मिनी सीरीज कौन सी है बेटा? आई एम नॉट एबल टू फाइंड इट, राइट? एक बार नीचे कमेंट में लिख देना, फिर देख लेंगे. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच गाइस.